mean, yeah, they weren't substantive, or, yeah, you decide.
I get it from like 5 different Good thing we're best. Which list is that?
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the Morris Plains Planning Board meeting, March 18th, 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I hereby announce that this meeting is being held in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Open Public Meeting Act. Proper notice of meeting dates has been given to the Morris Newsbee and the Morris County Daily Record and posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Roll call, please.
Mr. Oldenblick,
Present.
Mr. Garafaglia,
Present.
Mrs. Kelly,
Present.
Mrs. Stecker,
Present.
Mrs. McCluskey, Mr.
Here.
Kelly, Mr. Bezel, Mayor Carr,
Present.
and Mr. Drusilla.
Present.
And
Okay.
Mrs. McCluskey, please move the speaker, microphone a little closer to you. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, are there any comments from the public on matters not on the agenda for tonight? Okay, moving on, we'll close that portion of the meeting. Correspondence, do we have any correspondence, Karen?
No, we have no correspondence.
And Mr. Drexler will do the bills.
Yes, I'd like to move the following bills from Anderson and Densler for professional services for the month of February, $235.88, and from Phillips, Price, and Greigel for professional services for the month of January, $915.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Carr?
Second. Yes.
You seconded,
Yes.
yes, right, okay. All right, Mr. Oldenblick,
Yes.
Mr. Garafaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Stecker,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mayor Carr,
Yes.
and Frank Drusilla.
Yes.
Okay, we have the minutes of the February 12th, 2024 meeting. Are there any corrections or additions?
Did you do the public?
Yes, we did the public.
Running across the north. My long land.
That's- Okay, any corrections or additions to the February 12th? No? Okay, could we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. We have application PB 4-23, 1625 Route 10, LLC, 225 Littleton Road, LLC. We're here for the reading and approval of the resolution.
Yes,
Okay.
Melman. Good evening, for the record, Tom Melman on behalf of the applicant. And
I
you're
had an
correct.
opportunity to go over the resolution with the professionals. Mr. Malman, I think there are maybe 2 or 3 issues he would like to address, and maybe we could address before.
Okay,
I
sure.
left the resolution is still in black line with a few of the issues might be easier to refer to, and then they'll be easier for the reading.
So I'm going to go first.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Before I read, yeah, might as well
Yeah.
get.
I'll say Andy did a great job with the resolution as usual. He and I have had a little back and forth over the past couple of days. I've got just a few minor comments. I'm working off the black line copy we got today. Is that what the board has? And I'm starting on page 11 of that black line in paragraph double J. And it's the second sentence of double J says, he testified that the lights facing Signature Place will go on with the parking lot lights and only be on when the stores are open. I've been advised there could be some security lighting that may have to remain on longer than that, so that's really the issue. Is there a special division to allow for security lights along the back?
So let's just stop. I would refer to the engineer and then the board. Let's do it one by one.
That's acceptable, but the lighting plan needs to be revised to be very specific as to what security lighting we're talking about. Are we talking building-mounted lights, pole-mounted lights? But I need to know with all certainty what lights are proposed to be on beyond the discussion here. Just need to know that.
That's fine, we can accept the condition that would require us
Yeah,
to do
so
that.
I want to get just how the proposal, I think it's going to be, so. We'll go on with the parking lights on and only be on during business hours and for security purposes.
Security, it could be beyond the business hours, it's for security,
And-
that's really the point.
And for security. And then a condition.
Are they gonna be on overnight? Overnight?
The record, Eric Keller? It's in the black line, page 11, you have to have the black line copy, Mayor. Oh, it just shows changes, you'll see like
Yeah.
deletions and additions. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm with you. JJ?
JJ,
Okay, fine.
it's the second sentence of JJ.
And this applies to a future phase, correct, Eric?
For the record, Eric Keller, Bowman Consulting, I understand I'm still under oath. It would apply to both Phase 1 with Building A and then also with Building B.
Which is phase 2.
Right, and it's just that area between those two buildings and Signature Place and to the extent Sunrise is back there. So we would pick a couple of poles so that for police purposes and for general security of that area, that the area is not dark. You know, so we would have enough lights on that, and they'd be pole-mounted lights, other than whatever building-mounted lights need to be on for code reasons. But it would be, you know, a couple of pole-mounted at the back of those two buildings, so that there is some level of illumination for security.
So what I have is on JJ, the second sentence will read, testify that the lights facing Signature Place will go on with the parking lot lights and only be on during business hours and for security. And that there'll be a condition that's added at the end, between 29 and 30, applicant shall submit an updated lighting plan subject to the review and written approval by the board engineer.
Which specifies which lights shall remain on for security purposes
All night,
all night.
till dawn.
I would just put a note on each pole that you want.
Yep.
I think Andy just mentioned overnight, I think that's important, because that's really the purpose of this. Why don't you bring up your exhibit with the islands? Are we good with that one?
Yes, it appears.
Okay, the board agree with that change? Yes. Okay.
Okay, I'm still in the black line copy, moving on out of page 13, double Z.
Which copy are we doing, the original or the second?
The one that went out this afternoon. I have copies of them.
This is what went out this afternoon.
Yep.
My page 11 didn't line up with that.
Yeah, ZZ is on page 10 of what was on at your desk.
Yeah, the page is going to change.
So what about the one that's here now?
It's on
I think
page
that those
10.
are printed on long sheets. so you can-
Yeah.
It's a different page.
Well, if you have the legal size, just go to page 10.
Yeah, okay.
Double Z.
I don't have the one.
Wait till everybody's in the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on page 10. Of the
Double D
copy
or
you
triple D?
received.
Oh, wait,
Double
wait.
Z, like zebra.
Mr. D, starting with
Z.
What?
Double Z,
Z.
zebra.
See it?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just read it now, I'll go for the comment. So Mr. Keller testified as to Exhibit A3, and that the north hyphen south island in the existing parking lot will be removed. There are actually several islands that have to be partially removed, and I was gonna have Mr. Keller just revisit the exhibit we had at the hearing to explain what that is, so we get this language correct, so. Eric.
This is Exhibit A3 that was marked on January 15th of this year. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 north-south islands that exist in the parking lot south of the 1625 building. And we're going to create this driveway, so we need to remove a portion of the island, each island, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that we have a continuous driveway through. These are just painted islands on either side. So we have to remove the physical island that is currently there so you can drive through.
So I would suggest that it read, Mr. Keller testified as to Exhibit A3 that portions of the north-south island, plural, and then the rest of it is fine.
Yeah, do you agree?
I agree.
Okay, the board agrees?
Ed, you good?
Good.
Okay. And then lastly, I'm now on to, it's condition number 17. I'm not sure which page you have it. It's on page 18 of mine, but it's condition 17. And you want to bring up the other?
The other exhibit.
It's page 14.
Thanks. Slick, I don't know how you figured that out. I see it.
Are you with me?
Yep.
Okay. Condition 17 reads, the sidewalk towards Signature Place shall be constructed up to the property line as part of Phase 1. If you look at 18, it then talks about the sidewalk being part of Phase 2 or some subsequent phase. I believe we testified it would happen in Phase 2, not Phase 1, and I had Eric to kind of talk about why that is. Then you can kind of run through it.
This is Exhibit A6, also marked on January 15th of '24. And what we had discussed, we did not show it on here. This plan shows the Signature Place site plan and our site plan in a
So
composite.
building A is in the top, building B.
Building A, building B, there's a sidewalk that runs along the west side of building B. And this is a logical place because there is a flatter slope, kind of in the middle of the parking lot for this carriage building, where we think that the sidewalk best fits to meet design criteria, would come up and then cross over to this island at building B and make that linkage, and then they would have a linkage to all the other buildings within the complex. That was my testimony on the 15th.
So our ask is to eliminate condition 17 because we believe condition 18 properly covers this issue.
So just before that, I did have a question on that as well. Who maintains that from during the weather? Should that be in here as well?
Maintains the sidewalk to Signature Place.
Correct.
Again, there's no easement yet in place. I
Right.
suspect Signature Place will ask us to maintain it, but that has not been discussion negotiated. We just had a discussion where they said to us, we think this will work, but we haven't really dotted the i's across the t's. So I really can't answer that for you just yet, Mayor.
We put in, it will be maintained and to be determined later, but maintained by somebody?
We can certainly put in, there'll be, I think in condition 18, it talks about having an easement. That easement should provide for, among other things, maintenance of this proposed sidewalk. So that can certainly be added.
All you have to do is say either this applicant or the owner of Signature Place shall maintain the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's fine. It's not a borough sidewalk, if that's your point.
Correct.
That's right.
Let me just jump in here. Do you sure you want to tie this into Phase 2? Because you're assuming Building B is Phase 2?
Well, if you
If
look
if that's the case, that's fine.
Well, if you look at condition 18, Leon, it says, as part of Phase 2 or such subsequent development phase determined by the board.
Okay, you got it.
So if our first building is along Route 10, we wouldn't do this probably, so.
Okay.
And the way, the uncertainty about the number of phases, the way I drafted in here, the other obligations that would normally be part of final site plan, is just that they're obligated to do it in Phase 2. They can ask for a change if it turns out they're gonna have 6 phases and they don't want it, but as of now, they have to do it Phase 2. If it changes, then they're gonna
Right,
have
it'll be
they're gonna
fluid.
need cross.
We'll deal with that case by case. So again, my ask is that 17 comes out, 18, I guess you could renumber them. 18 is fine the way it's written as far as we're concerned, 17 should come out. And that's all that I had. Again,
Agreeable to that, Leon?
I'm sorry?
Are you agreeable to that?
Yes.
Okay, and the board?
Yes.
Okay,
That's all that I had. Andy did a great job, so thank you, Andy, for making my job easy.
And I know we talked about it with the EV ready.
Yeah. When we get to the EV parking, I can
Okay,
just read it.
yep, okay.
Just with before we start, so we don't have to stop, Mr. Keller, at the last meeting, we talked about the gates on the garbage containers somehow being spring-loaded to stay closed or remain closed if they weren't latched, because that relies on somebody to
Right.
relatch that. Was that looked into, or will that be addressed, for that, for having these gates?
We haven't looked at it yet. We can work on that through resolution compliance.
Okay.
And
I just don't want it to get forgotten. that's
Yeah.
all, so.
And we'll be back.
Yeah.
You know, we have final dates for other
Well,
phases.
I forgot you'll be back, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so we'll take care of it later on.
Well, there's no dumpsters for building A, correct?
There is one.
Okay.
It is, it's right near the,
Maybe.
proposed property line between A and B. B's is down to the east. I'm all turned around, I don't know which direction is
Just
which.
point, we're good.
Down here.
Yeah, that's fine.
But we have one down here, thank you. So, we'll look into that.
So I believe there's a condition in there about revisions to the dumpster enclosure details.
Yeah, that's the one I was.
I think we just need to insert that, the revision shall also,
Number 15, I
yeah,
think.
some language in there that they should be, the door shall be equipped with springs so that the gates are self-closing.
I'm sorry, so it's 15, all dumpster enclosure doors shall have plastic boards with dumpster enclosure details to be revised, subject to the review and approval of the board engineer.
Including the addition of springs or other devices.
Like a self-closing feature of some kind.
Correct, yeah.
Well, actually, if I might,
Springs would be the cheapest.
we didn't talk about self-closing because they don't want it to have it start to close when the truck is still there dumping the dumpster. What we wanted was not to have a pin that somebody has to, it's self,
It
I don't wanna
just
say
stays
locking,
closed.
but safe, you know.
It just stays closed. Some
So I
resistance
say what,
to
make it the pin is only used to hold the door open. So the truck can go in and grab the dumpster.
Yeah, we don't want it to close, so it's
Yeah,
self.
can you guarantee that the garbage guy is gonna close the gates? They usually just empty
No,
it, dump,
you can't.
step on the gas and they're out of there.
Just go look behind, Cole's area.
So let's Mr. Hall give a suggested addition to 15 and no interruptions. Let him finish the sentence and then we'll work on that. How's that? So I'll read it as it is and you add what's gonna be added. All dumpster enclosure doors shall have plastic boards with dumpster enclosure details to be revised, subject to the review and approval of the board's engineer, including
A device that ensures the dumpster doors remain closed. After garbage pickup. Sound good?
Everyone agree?
I have two questions. There's the trees
Okay,
along Signature Place, are they gonna be removed?
This area here,
Correct.
there may be some because we're regrading this area. But I'm sure we were planting in that area.
You're
And
what?
that, we're gonna have to replant that area after we regrade it.
Yeah, well, some, turns into a lot always. What about up above? Keep going all the way to 202.
Up here, we have very little change to the grading, so whatever is in there now is staying in there. We're not showing any tree removal back there.
Curb line stays the
So
same.
there can be some down here.
Yeah, because we have to regrade this area, we're going to go about halfway into the slope. So,
Is there gonna
Yeah, we
be
can-
replenishment,
yes,
extensive?
and if it, I don't recall what's on our plans, I didn't bring our landscape plan, but I can guarantee when we come in for final for building B, if we haven't addressed it, we will end up addressing it. So I will make a note of that.
Okay. Andy, I have a question on Z. Z, on the original one you put out. There was discussion about the shared access with Stop and Shop. So to me, what does that mean? It means I don't see any, means nothing. I know what you talked about, that it's a shared thing, but it just says there was discussion.
It says in the, one of the other drafts.
Okay, maybe it does.
I saw in one of the other drafts that it mentions about the milling and the paving of that access driveway.
Yeah,
Right.
maybe there shouldn't be in this, is what I'm saying, because I don't know what it means.
I can delete that and live with the minutes.
Yeah, what?
I can delete that paragraph.
Yeah, well, so what the rest of them, I think you deleted, because I don't know what, yeah, there might have been discussion, but it doesn't give any
What it was.
meat to it.
So there was something in here, one of the conditions was that they will.
Yeah, condition 14 deals with the shared driveway and what has to be done to it.
So we just delete it.
Yep.
Which one was that now? Z?
Condition 14.
No, I knew we had.
Z, single Z.
So, let's go back to condition 14. So if you contact the owners of Stop and Shop and they deny you the ability to mill and pave that driveway, where does that put us?
Well, we have easement rights. I think we have the right to go and do that, is my sense. We will certainly cooperate with them and let them know we're doing it, because it's on their property, but we have the right to come in and out, and there are joint maintenance obligations for that driveway. So it'll get done.
Okay.
And I think Indiana language will keep you apprised of that and give you copies of both of them. I guess you maybe won't be here, Leon, but the engineer gets time, will get copies of correspondence and things like that to keep you guys abreast of what's going on. I mean, it's certainly in our best interest to do it, because it's, you know, the front door of the facility.
I think your question, Leon, at that time is they didn't go all the way to 202.
Yeah, but now they've agreed to mill and pave all the way up to 202, but when you read 14, it kind of implies that the milling and paving of that shared access drive may be subject to the approval of the owner of the Stop and Shop.
Yeah.
I guess if it is and they say no, then the applicant will be returning to this board for an amendment prior to CO. That's what's gonna happen, the way I see it. Andy, what do you think?
Yes.
Well, I think, has someone communicated with the ownership?
Not yet, we will. Obviously, once this is approved, that'll be one of the steps we have to take.
Any comments?
I don't know why you didn't communicate with them before, candidly. You would think you would do that.
We have an easement that's been in place for 30, 40, 50 years.
I don't see why they would object, I'll tell you.
I don't either.
Go on.
It's in their best interest to have it done because it's a mess.
Right, exactly, so we'll get done.
Okay, are we ready? Any other comments?
Okay,
Jane?
I would like to, just explain who can vote and who can't vote, okay, for the record. Okay, Mr. Bezel has recused himself for the 1:15 special meeting, 1:29, and 2:15, and he's not present tonight. Mrs. Steckert missed the special meeting, but I have certification that she read, listened to the tapes for the 1:29 special meeting, okay? And Mr. Augenblick missed the meeting of 2:15, and that means he cannot vote tonight. So the people eligible to vote tonight is Mr. Garafaglia, Mrs. Kelly, Mrs. Steckert, Mrs. McCluskey. Mr. Kelly would be, but he's not here, Mayor Carr, and Frank Drusilla. Okay, so just need that to be in the record.
Okay,
Good.
okay.
Or read the second line of the title, rather than soil removal, should say soil disturbance. With that being said, I will now read the resolution, draft resolution for you to consider. Resolution for preliminary site plan with variances, minor subdivision, final site plan as to phase 1, soil disturbance, tree removal, and demolition permit. Planning Board, Borough of Morris Plains, application number PB-04-23. Applicant 1625 Route 10 LLC, premises 1625 Route 10, 225 Littleton Road, Lot 171, lots 45 and 45.01. Whereas 1625 Route 10 LLC and 225 Littleton Road LLC, the applicant or developer, made application to the Planning Board of the Borough of Morris Plains, the board, for preliminary site plan approval for the entire tract, final site plan approval for phase 1, minor subdivision approval with variance relief, tree removal, soil disturbance permit, and a demolition permit, the development, on property owned by applicant designated as Block 171, lots 45 and 45.01, on the tax map of the Borough of Morris Plains, commonly known as 1625 Route 10 and 225 Littleton Road, the property or the site. And whereas applicant published a hearing notice in an official newspaper of the board and provided notice of the application to those required to receive the same in accordance with the law and filed proofs of publication and service with the board secretary. And whereas the board held hearings on the application on January 15, 2024, January 29, 2024, and February 14, 2024, reviewed reports filed by the applicant, reviewed the reports of the board engineer, Leon Hall, P.E., the board planner, Elizabeth C. Mahaney, AICP, PP, the board's soil consultant, Joseph Norton, LSRP, and the board's traffic consultant, Harold K. Maltz, PE, PP, and considered the testimony and the exhibits presented by the applicant. And whereas Thomas Malman represented applicant, and whereas after carefully considering the evidence presented by the applicant, the board now makes the following factual findings and conclusions. 1, the applicant submitted and the board considered the following documents which were made part of the application. A, cover letter to Karen Coffey entitled 1625 Route 10 LLC and 225 Littleton Road LLC, consisting of 2 sheets signed by Thomas J. Malman, Bay Pitney, 08/24/23. B, cover letter to Karen Coffey entitled 1625 Route 10 LLC and 225 Littleton Road LLC, consisting of 2 sheets signed by Eric L. Keller, P.E., P.P., Lead, A.P., Bauman Consulting Group, Ltd., 10/02/23. C, cover letter to Karen Coffey entitled 1625 Route 10 LLC and 225 Littleton Road LLC, consisting of 4 sheets signed by Eric L. Keller, P.E., P.P., Lead, A.P., Bauman Consulting Group, Ltd., 10/26/23. D, application for development signed by Thomas J. Malman, Esquire, 8/22/23. E, application for soil disturbance and importation of soils signed by Mark Calabro, Vice President of Development, 8/18/23. F, application for tree removal permit signed by Mark Calabro, undated. G, architectural plans and elevations consisting of 34 sheets prepared by Charles P. Dietz of the Dietz Partnership, 8/22/23, with revisions through 10/20/23. H, boundary and topographic survey, Weichert Development Company, 1625 and 225 Weichert Campus, consisting of 4 sheets prepared by Martin F. Torella, NJ Professional Land Surveyor of Bauman, 8/11/23. I, certification that taxes are paid, signed by Anna M. Thomas, 7/20/23. J, certified list of property owners within 200 feet in the borough of Morris Plains, signed by Scott Holzhauer, CTA, SCGREA, tax assessor, 7/20/23. K, certified list of property owners within 200 feet in Parsippany Troy Hills, prepared by Daniel S. Cassis, tax assessor, 7/24/23. L, checklist waiver summary for Weichert campus redevelopment, consisting of 1 sheet prepared by Bauman, 8/18/23, revised 9/29/23. M, section 13-4.2G1, checklist A, checklist for determining completeness of an application for approval of a minor subdivision. N, section 13-4.2G5, checklist E, checklist for determining completeness of an application for approval of a preliminary and final site plan. O, 13-4.2G6, checklist F, checklist for determining completeness of an application for variances and appeals pursuant to NJSA 40:55D-34, 35, and 70. P, draft notice of hearing. Q, fee calculation worksheet for Highline Marketplace. R, email to Karen Coffey from Chief Michael M. Korosky regarding application number PB-424-23, consisting of 1 sheet, 8/31/23. S, letter to Karen Coffey from Mr. Donald C. Salerno, zoning officer, consisting of 1 sheet, 8/29/23. T, letter to Karen M. Coffey from Kevin Rongo, chief of Morris Plains Fire, pertaining to the application consisting of 1 sheet, 9/12/23. U, letter to Karen Coffey from Mr. Phil Wilk, fire subcode official, pertaining to the application 8/29/23. V, phase 1 environmental site assessment, preliminary assessment, 225 Littleton Road and 1625 Route 10, Morris Plains, New Jersey, 07950, lot 171, lots 45 and 45.01, prepared by First Environment, Inc., June 2023. W, preliminary and final site plan and minor subdivision for phase 1 and preliminary site plan for Highline Marketplace, block 171, lots 45 and 45.01, Borough of Morris Plains, Morris County, New Jersey, consisting of 32 sheets, prepared by Rt Keller, P.E. of Bauman Engineering, 8/18/23, with revisions through 10/26/23. X, shared parking analysis, Highline Marketplace, consisting of 15 sheets, signed by planning and real estate consultants, Eric L. Keller, P.E., P.P., Reed, A.P., 8/11/23, revised 9/27/23. Y, site plan and subdivision report of the Morris County Planning Board regarding Highline Marketplace, 10/05/23. Z, stormwater management report for Highline Marketplace, block 171, lots 45 and 45.01, Borough of Morris Plains, Morris County, New Jersey, prepared by Eric L. Keller, P.E. of Bauman, 8/18/23. Double A, title report, file number C-24072, seller, 1625 Route 10, LLC, property address 1625 Route 10, Morris Plains, New Jersey, 07/28/22. BB, traffic impact study for Highline Marketplace, Borough of Morris Plains, Morris County, prepared by Eric L. Keller, P.E. of Bauman, 8/23/23. CC, various resolutions of approval. Double D, wetlands transition area riparian zone investigation for Highline Marketplace, consisting of 4 pages, prepared by Environmental Technology, Inc., dated 10/13/23. 2, the board considered the following submittals from its consultants. A, reports of Leon Hall, P.E., of Anderson and Densler Associates, board engineer, dated September 14th, 2023, October 12th, 2023, November 16th, 2023, and January 11th, 2024. And B, reports of Elizabeth Mahaney, AICP, PP, board planner, dated October 12th, 2023, November 16th, 2023, and January 9th, 2024. And C, reports of Harold K. Maltz, P.E., PP, board traffic consultant, dated November 16, 2023, January 12th, 2024, and January 25th, 2024. And D, reports of Joseph Norton, LSRP, board soil consultant, dated October 13, 2023, and December 11th, 2023. 3, the following variances are sought as part of the application. A, Section 13.5.51M, to permit 889 off-street parking spaces, whereas 1,032 are required, without accounting for shared parking. B, Section 13.59G, to permit disturbance within areas greater than 20% in slope. C, Section 13.5.51I3C, to permit a setback of less than 5 feet from an internal roadway. D, Section 13.5.5106 reads as follows. Lighting levels at exterior tract boundary lines shall not exceed 0.5 foot candles, except where driveways, streets intersect with a public street, and where lighting levels along external roadways must meet NJDOT criteria. Lighting levels at exterior tract boundary lines abutting residential zones shall not exceed 0.1 foot candles. Along the tract boundary with Stop and Shop, light levels exceed the 0.5 foot candle max permitted and does not qualify for either exemption. E, Section 13.5.51J2.1 reads as follows. Sidewalks shall be provided along all frontages on Route 10, Route 202, and Johnson Road unless the applicant demonstrates to the satisfaction of the approving entity that an alternative pedestrian system provides safe and convenient circulation. 4, the following design waivers are requested. A, Section 13-4.14C 2.2DI, to permit spaces that are 9 feet wide by 18 feet long with an overhang, or 9 feet wide by 20 feet long, whereas 10 feet wide by 20 feet long is required. B, Section 13.4-14B 5.2K, to permit alteration of more than 1 foot of existing topography within 5 feet of adjoining property. C, street shade trees along Johnson Road in accordance with Section 13.4.14B 1.18 have not been provided. D, Section 13-4.14C 2.2I requires the installation of sidewalks within the street right-of-way. E, 13.4.14C 2.2KI requires designated fire zones but none provided. F, Section 13.4.14C 2.2K requires the inside edge of the paved area shall be approximately 15 feet from the building or such other distance as may be recommended by the fire department. 5, the board carefully considered the following testimony at the public hearings. A, applicant produced Rt. Keller, P.E., who was sworn and accepted as an expert in the field of engineering. B, Mr. Keller testified about Exhibit A2, a site plan rendering, an aerial photo of the proposed conditions. The footprint of Building A will stay the same with the addition of buildings B through H. He further testified that the applicant seeks preliminary site plan approval for the entire project and final site plan approval only for phase 1, which is building A, and seek to go forward without yet obtaining DOT approval. C, phase 1 shall include building A and all of the proposed improvements on new lot 45.03, the temporary stormwater basin and associated landscaping, grading and walkway on lot 45.02, utilities serving the improvements on new lot 45.03, pavement markings and associated access improvements to facilitate access to new lot 45.03 from Johnson Road and Route 202. D, he testified that building A will be 3 stories with retail, commercial, and/or daycare uses on the first floor with Weichert offices on the second and third floors. Building B will have retail and self-storage, and buildings C through H are 1-story structures intended for retail, restaurants, and food market. Building B through H are not in phase 1. E, he testified that total square footage of all proposed buildings is 278,843 square feet, an increase of approximately 48,000 square feet over the office space currently on site. There are a total of 889 parking spaces, whereas 1,032 are required. When credits for EV spaces are accounted for, there is a parking shortfall of 107 spaces for which variance is requested. And that should be, that should be where credits for make-ready EV spaces are accounted for. F, Mr. Keller further testified about the sidewalk and internal roadways. Refuse and recycling will be in individual dumpsters, and building C, anticipated to be a food market, will have a compactor. G, Mr. Keller testified about the elevations on the property and that the applicant is seeking a variance for areas where the slope exceeds 20%. H, he further testified that the project is disturbing more than 1 acre and is considered a major project. The stormwater report of August 2023 details how all state and borough requirements are met. All basins are bioretention, will remain privately owned and maintained by the owner to be inspected quarterly and after any major storm. I, Mr. Keller testified about the sanitary sewer for buildings A and B and a new sanitary sewer conveyance for the northern portion of the property. The applicant has had preliminary discussions with the borough's DPW. J, the 2 existing water services from Littleton Road servicing 225 Littleton and from Johnson Road, which serve 1625 Route 10, will remain. The applicant is working with SMC MUA regarding the extension of the water supply. K, Mr. Keller testified as to the shared driveway and the lighting plan. All fixtures to be 15 feet high with LED lights on from dusk to dawn. L, the applicant will need a sewer extension permit from the DEP and a master permit from the SMC MUA. They have submitted an application for a DOT permit and are awaiting comments. M, he further testified that the applicant needs tree removal permit, soil disturbance, and demolition approval for the 1625 Route 10 building. N, applicant is proposing 66 evergreen trees and 2,300 deciduous and evergreen shrubs, and the removal of 183 trees and approximately 9,000 cubic yards of soil removal. O, Mr. Keller testified that phase 1 will require creating an access aisle to Johnson Road to facilitate traffic. The bioretention basin near the 1625 Route 10 building will use a lawn area to create a temporary basin. The applicant does not require sewer or water approvals for phase 1, as building A is not changing in size. P, Mr. Keller testified that the applicant is proposing a temporary bioretention basin in the lawn area next to the west of the 1625 Route 10 building, which will be eliminated as the project proceeds. Q, Mr. Keller testified as to Exhibit A4, the Building A revised drop-off area. R, there were questions from the board members and professionals about the specifics of the proposed drop-off area. S, Mr. Keller testified that there will be bollards installed on the parking area facing the play area for the daycare center. T, he further testified as to Exhibit A6, labeled Highline Marketplace and Signature Place. The owner of Signature Place has expressed an interest in allowing a sidewalk connection between building A and B to Signature Place, subject to borough approval and appropriate easement and maintenance documents. U, Mr. Keller testified that the applicant will look into adding bicycle storage. V, Mr. Keller testified as to the traffic study and the shared parking study. He testified that the applicant will go through a process with NJDOT to determine a fair share contribution to address traffic impacts, which will be part of the DOT permit process. W, Mr. Maltz testified he is familiar with the fair share contributions and his belief that the process with the DOT will focus on the jug handle on Route 10 eastbound and westbound. X, Mr. Hall testified about the concern with people coming from Route 10 to Johnson Road and then to Malapartis Road. Y, Mr. Keller testified his opinion that the site is designed to not be conducive to cut through traffic. Z will be removed. Double A, Mr. Keller testified about the proposed shared parking and the report dated August 11th, 2023. Peak parking demand is 864 spaces, while 889 spaces are provided. ITE standards result in a peak parking demand of 651 spaces. Double B, the hearing was carried to January 29th, 2024. Double C, applicant produced Charles Dietz, architect, who was sworn and accepted as an expert in the field of architecture. Double D, Mr. Dietz testified as to Exhibits A9 and A10, drone aerial pictures of portions of the site depicting several of the proposed buildings and the existing high-tension cables. Double E, Exhibit A11 depicts the retrofit of Building A, which will be retail, commercial, and or daycare on the first floor, and offices on the second and third floors with brick facade and structural steel canopies. Double F, Exhibit A12 depicts the facade for proposed Building B, first floor retail uses, and will also include self-storage facilities on the second and third floors. Double G, Exhibit A13 depicts proposed Building C, a specialty food store. Mr. Dietz further testified as to Exhibits A14 to 16 depicting the proposed facades for proposed buildings. He further testified as to Sheet A32 from the architectural plans depicting the proposed monument signs and that the height of the signs conforms to the borough ordinance. Double H, Mr. Dietz testified the windows will not be operable. He further testified that any individual HVAC units will be screened. As to signage, he testified that each tenant would be unique and individual tenants would have to go to zoning for sign approval. Double I, the applicant consented to the condition that all signage for all buildings would have a consistent architectural and aesthetic theme subject to the review and approval of the board planner. Double J, he further testified that the Weichert sign will not be lit while the monument signs will have internally illuminated panels. He testified that the lights facing Signature Place will go on with the parking lot lights and only be on during business hours and for security purposes. Double K, Mr. Dietz testified he did not know whether the HVAC equipment on buildings A and B would satisfy NJDEP noise limits at residential property lines. Mr. Hall expressed his opinion that a noise test should be conducted prior to CO. Double L, Mr. Dietz testified that it is unclear as to when Phase 2 will be constructed. Double M, the applicant presented additional testimony from Rt Keller, P.E. Double N, Mr. Keller referred to Exhibit A17 dated 1/29/2024. He testified that the proposed drop-off area for Building A is being eliminated, which will allow for an additional 6 parking spaces with an area labeled, quote, loading bus area, close quote. Double O, Mr. Keller testified that bollards will be added to protect the outdoor play area if there is one, and that sidewalks will be provided down to Johnson Road. Double P, in response to Mr. Maltz's report, The applicant would like to defer the issue of cart corrals and 10-foot wide spaces for Building C when final site plan approval is sought for that building. Double Q. The applicant consented to provide information on the plans indicating conduit layout for the EV spaces. And that's for the make-ready EV spaces. Double R, Mr. Keller testified that at full construction of Phase 1, there will be 915 parking spaces, 8 make-ready EV spaces, and 7 ADA spaces. Double S, Mr. Keller testified that the applicant will amend the plans to delete the sidewalk at the southern end of the property along Johnson Road. Double T, Mr. Keller testified that the steep slope variance is a C1 variance caused by existing man-made development. The remaining bulk variances qualify under both C1 and C2, and that purposes A, E, G, H, and I would be advanced by the grant of the variances, and that the lighting variance is for the benefit of the public. W, Mr. Keller further testified that the variances can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not have any negative impacts, and the variances will not impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan. Double V, the hearing was continued to the board's February 12, 2024 meeting. Double WW, Mr. Keller testified as to revisions made to the entrance from Route 10 following comments expressed by Mr. Maltz. Mr. Keller testified as to Exhibit A19, which depicts changes to the plaza at the east end of Building F, creating a clear line of sight to the crosswalk. He further testified that the retaining wall for the plaza had been shifted further from the curb on the entrance drive. Double X. Mr. Keller testified as to Exhibit A19, depicting the improved sight lines. Mr. Maltz testified he had reviewed the plans and that they significantly improved the sight distance. Double Y. Mr. Keller consented to the condition that the landscaping shown on Exhibit A18 will be shown on the landscaping plan, subject to final location by the board engineer. Double Z. Mr. Keller testified as to Exhibit A3 and that portions of the north-south islands in the existing parking lot would be removed and the applicant will patch and fill potholes. As to Sheet 4, the demolition plan, Mr. Keller consented to remove note number 7 and that all pavement will be removed and replaced. Triple A. Mr. Keller testified that the soil disturbance permit is for the entire site and may need to be modified for future phases. Triple B, the applicant consented to the condition that dumpster enclosures would be a brick veneer, not full brick, similar to that used on the buildings. Triple C, Mr. Keller consented to amend the plans to show the conduits that are to be installed as part of Phase 1 at all make-ready spaces and shown on the plans. Triple D, Mr. Keller testified that the NJDOT had approved a new flight path for the heliport and the paperwork regarding the amendment would be provided to the board. Triple E, Mr. Keller testified that there will be bicycle racks proximate to the plaza for Building A. Triple F, there was discussion about potential changes in the proposed uses of the buildings and that a condition of approval would be that if any change in use is proposed, the applicant must submit the information to the board engineer prior to seeking permits for the changed use, and the board engineer will determine if there is a need for minor site plan approval for such change. 6, with regard to applicant's request for variance relief, the board finds the following facts and conclusions. A, the applicant's requested variance from section 13-5.51M to permit 889 off-street parking spaces where 1,032 are required, results in improved zoning for the tract and will allow the applicant to develop the property. In addition, the board finds that the benefits of deviation from the parking space requirement would substantially outweigh any detriment. Variance relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and with no impairment to the borough's zone plan and zoning ordinance. B, the board specifically finds that granting relief from the strict application of section 13-5.9G regarding steep slopes advances the zoning purpose of the borough of Morris Plains, and the benefits of such relief substantially outweigh any detriment. The board is satisfied that the topography of the site requiring the variance arises from prior development and not from natural topography, and that the benefits to be derived from granting the relief requested by the applicant would substantially outweigh any detriment. Further, the board finds that the relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. C, the board specifically finds that granting relief from the minimum setbacks from an internal roadway and the maximum lighting levels at track boundaries advances the zoning purposes of the Borough of Morris Plains, and the benefits of such relief substantially outweigh any detriment. Further, the board finds that the relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. 7, with respect to all requested variances, the board finds that the variances will not cause a substantial detriment to the surrounding property owners. The requested deviations are internal and do not involve any changes to the previous approved site plan. 8, the board further finds that all of the requested variances will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan. The requested deviation take out that sentence, I don't know why that's in there. The development as a whole is consistent with the zone plan for the area. The variances are not substantial deviations from the zone plan and will result in better zoning alternative for the property. Now therefore be it resolved by the planning board of the Borough of Morris Plains in the county of Morris in the state of New Jersey on this 18th day of March 2024 as follows. 1, preliminary site plan approval as to the entire property and preliminary and final site plan approval for phase 1 with variance relief, building demolition, soil disturbance permit, and tree removal approval are hereby granted as depicted on the aforesaid plans, subject to the conditions hereinafter set forth. 2, minor subdivision approval is hereby granted as depicted upon the aforesaid plans. 3, subdivision deed with meets and bounds descriptions shall be reviewed and approved by the board engineer and board attorney prior to signing and filing. 4, as to phase 1, cross easements for access, utilities, stormwater management, and shared parking shall be reviewed and approved by the board engineer and board planner and filed prior to certificate of occupancy. 5, variance relief as set forth above for the aforementioned reasons as proposed in testimony hereby granted pursuant to NJSA 40:55D-C1 and C2, subject to the conditions hereinafter set forth. 6, the board grants the application for tree removal pursuant to section 23A-2.2B of the revised ordinance of the Borough of Morris Plains, subject to final approval by the board engineer as set forth in the conditions hereafter. 7, the applicant shall comply with A, the January 11, 2024 report of the board engineer to a satisfaction except as otherwise stated in testimony. B, the December 11, 2023 report of Joseph Norton, LSRP, 60 days prior to any import or export, except as otherwise stated in testimony. C, the November 16, 2024 report of Elizabeth Lahaney, PP, prior to signing a site plan, except as otherwise stated in testimony. D, the January 25, 2024 report of Harold K. Maltz, PE, PP. 8, applicant shall meet with the fire department regarding striping of the parking lot and fire zones and comply with recommendations and requirements of the fire department. 9, the utility hot box will be painted an earth tone, non-reflective color to be approved by the board planner. 10, all signage for all buildings will have a consistent architectural and aesthetic theme subject to the review and approval of the board planner. 11, if any change in use of any of the buildings is proposed, permits may not be sought or issued until such change in use is submitted to the board engineer, who shall determine if there is a need for minor site plan or other approval. 12, applicant shall have all branches, limbs, and other debris removed from the pond and surrounding area located in the conservation easement area, with same to be confirmed in writing by the board engineer prior to a certificate of occupancy for phase 1. 13, Applicant shall remove and replace all pavement, full depth, for phase 1 and all future phases. 14, the shared access drive out to Route 202 and proposed roadway out to Johnson Road shall have a 2-inch mill and top course paving as part of phase 1. The improvements to the shared access drive, which is the subject of an existing easement, shall be subject to approval of the neighboring property owner, and the board engineer will be provided a copy of all correspondence and communications with the neighboring property owner on this issue. 15, all dumpster enclosure doors shall have plastic boards with dumpster enclosure details to be revised, subject to the review and approval of the board engineer. 16, development of the plaza on the east side of Building A shall be in accordance with Exhibits A7 and A8. 18, provided that the owner of Signature Place agrees to a sidewalk connection from the property, the sidewalk shall be constructed as part of Phase 2 or subsequent development as determined by the board. The applicant agrees to use reasonable efforts to acquire an easement to permit the sidewalk connection to Signature Place, and all communications with Signature Place shall be provided to the board engineer. The applicant or Signature Place shall maintain the sidewalk. 19, applicant to provide stormwater management plan and O&M manual for all stormwater facilities to be recorded with the Morris County Clerk prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy for phase 1. 20, applicant shall provide appropriate signage and a gate to the access stairs for the heliport to be approved by the board engineer and planner prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy for phase 1. 21, all soil exported from the site will be exported out of the borough, and trucks transporting such soil will be required to come directly from and travel directly to Johnson Road to Route 10 from the site and avoid local roads. 22, the board engineer shall conduct a post-construction lighting inspection subject to the review and approval of the board engineer prior to issuance of any certificate of occupancy for any phase. 23, applicant shall provide to Joseph Norton a certification of clean topsoil to be imported at least 60 days prior to such importation. 24, the Morris Plains Police Department shall have the authority to enforce Title IX of the New Jersey statutes. 25, applicant shall submit any revisions to the building or facade or architectural plans of Building A to the board planner and board engineer for review and approval prior to the implementation of any such revisions. 26, applicant shall perform noise testing to ensure compliance with noise standards 65 dBA for daytime and 50 dBA for nighttime in accordance with Ordinance 4-2019 prior to occupancy of any building in compliance with the performance standard under the supervision of the construction code official. In the event the applicant or its lessee fail to said test, it shall install noise attenuation measures to bring the site into compliance. 27, if any of the individual findings, conclusions, or conditions as stated in this resolution are subsequently declared invalid, then the remaining findings and conclusions shall be deemed sufficient to support the decision of the board of the remaining conditions. 28, prior to signing the site plan for phase 1, applicant to obtain all other outside agency approvals, including but not limited to Morris County Planning Board and Morris County Soil Conservation District, except NJDOT and DEP TWA shall not be required to have been obtained, but shall be required as a condition of final site plan approval for all subsequent phases unless modified by the board. 29, the following conditions shall be satisfied prior to the commencement of site construction as to phase 1 only. A, payment of engineering inspection fees. B, applicant to schedule a pre-construction meeting with the borough engineer. C, submission of construction cost estimate to be provided to the borough engineer to determine the amount of inspection fees and payment of inspection fee. And D, obtain final approval on tree removal from borough engineer. And E, installation of staked orange construction snow fence protecting trees and shrubs to remain. F, obtain a signed site plan. G, enter into a developer's agreement as approved by the borough engineer. There'll be an additional paragraph. An updated lighting plan shall be submitted for review and approval by the borough engineer, which specifies which lights are to remain on for security purposes overnight. 30, the following conditions shall be satisfied prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for building A. A, fire department chief's written approval of required fire safety improvements, site familiarization, hydrants, and walkthrough. And B, police department's written approval of all traffic signs, markings, and site familiarization and walkthrough. And C, submission of plans satisfactory to police and fire department showing unit numbering and signs showing location of units. And D, borough engineer certification of satisfactory completion of site improvements, non-safety items such as landscaping, trees, top course of pavement, etc., may be deferred due to seasonal weather conditions, subject to posting of appropriate cash guarantees. And E, posting of 2-year maintenance guarantee for shade trees and landscaping. And F, applicant shall submit as-built plans showing building setbacks and utility lines and profiles and detailed calculations of height of buildings in accordance with section 13-4.11. And G, the board secretary shall certify in writing that adequate funds are in the board escrow account to cover all past, present, and future charges up to and including the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. 31, the board secretary shall provide a copy of this resolution to the borough attorney and to the construction official within 20 days of the date hereof. 32, this resolution shall take effect as provided by law.
Bravo.
Can we do that again?
What is in here?
That's what 12 years of Catholic school will be.
I'd rather get it over the knuckles.
And he started with half a bottle of water.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
I'd like to go back to condition number 4 on page 12, at least my page 12. It says, as to phase 1, cross easements for access, utility, stormwater management, and shared parking shall be reviewed and approved by the board engineer and board planner. Board planner, I believe, Andy, should be
Board attorney.
changed to borough attorney.
Yeah. Yep.
I agree.
I bet you do.
very quick.
Andy, just on 15, maybe it's just me, but I didn't hear you say that the revised verbiage for the number 15.
Let the gates remain closed.
The device
Yeah,
enclosed.
right.
Yep, I gotta find out.
Oh, which one was
This one,
But,
it was on here.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Would read, and I apologize. All dumpster enclosure doors shall have plastic boards with dumpster enclosure details to be revised, subject to the review and approval of the board engineer, including a device that ensures the dumpster doors remain closed after garbage pickup.
Thank you.
And excuse me, on page 1, the meeting was on February 12th, okay?
Do we have a motion to approve the resolution
I just
as?
have one more
Okay.
nit. It's just on last page 4, paragraph X. Shared parking analysis. This is signed by planning and real estate consultants, it's really signed by Rt Keller, and he's with Bowman. See that, Andy?
Where is this?
Paragraph X. What do you- You see it in paragraph X?
Signed by Eric Keller.
Correct, so this will eliminate planning and real estate consultant. I'm sorry, what we doing?
So when it talks about monuments on it, it only references monuments, but we have pylons too. So let's see.
Put it on the plans.
Okay, but it specifically talked about just the one on it, that meant everything.
It's on the plans.
Okay.
We're good? Okay,
Yes.
could we have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll do that.
Frank, second?
Second.
I didn't hear who passed.
Frank and
second. Excuse me, Frank and who?
myself.
Oh,
Roll call, please.
okay. Mr. Delmaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Stecker,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
Mayor Carr,
Yes.
and Mr. Drutzel.
Yes.
Great,
Excellent.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate it.
Just a comment for the applicants, FYI. The development agreement is one of those items you have to secure prior to starting site work. Give yourself 4 to 6 months to get that development agreement reviewed and approved by the borough attorney, going to the council for the mayor to execute it, and getting it recorded. You're gonna need 4 to 6 months to get that done.
Yeah.
Just an FYI,
Okay. Duly
based
noted.
on recent experience.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm just trying to be helpful here.
thank you, good night.
look forward to seeing you again.
We'll be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Forty minutes,
Yeah, I was gonna say it was,
40 minutes.
Have to get you a speed reading class.
Thanks for everyone's support.
oh,
Thanks.
great, yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, moving on, minor site plan committee. The chairman is not here. Master plan review committee,
No report.
new business,
I have some new business I'd like to share with everybody. As of today,
Could you, Jason, just move the microphone?
as of today, I'm just looking at my phone for the correct information here. The bill that was presented to our Senate,
You know,
State
nice
Senate,
band would be nice.
was approved today, unfortunately. And then it had to go back to the Assembly because of some amendments to that. And it went to the Assembly and it passed in the Assembly 49-25, which is also, in my opinion, horrendous for a bill that was really gonna be detrimental to many New Jersey communities. This bill was pushed through quickly, tried to do it in a lame duck session. It stalled a little bit in the Senate, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, it has passed, and it will be going to the governor's desk for his signature on this bill. So I think everybody agrees that we need affordable housing, but not in a bill like this, where it's detrimental even further to these municipalities. And with Morris Plains, I can speak to, where it would be adding more burden on the infrastructure, our services, and the legislature really took none of this into consideration in voting yes for this bill. So I think they just did it because everybody's been pushing the legislature to come up with some new ways of figuring out everybody's requirement, and they got that accomplished, but I think it's gonna be detrimental. So we'll see if the governor signs it, and we'll see where this ends up, probably in court again, but this is something that, in my opinion, is detrimental to Morris Plains, so unfortunately. That's a report. New business or old business, I don't know exactly where it falls in, but bad business.
Liz, you have any comments on it?
No, I only learned that it had been gone through from the mayor. So we'll see. I mean, as I think spoke about last time, it had a very accelerated timeline. So if it does get signed, if it doesn't get adjudicated, which is a lot of ifs, you know, we'll be talking about this sooner rather than later. We'll be talking about it probably in the fall, maybe even sooner.
I've put up some names to the council. Hopefully they'll vote on that tomorrow or at Thursday's meeting. An affordable housing committee that I thought would really be done already. But now that they have something to work with, some substance to work with here, and what our obligations may be and what we have already, and property that we do have for that sort of thing, so forth, and what, you know, all that stuff. So hopefully on Thursday the council will vote to okay the people I have picked for that committee. Before you know it, July 2025 will be here.
It's gonna be before then.
Yeah.
I mean, as it's laid out, they want everything sort of done by,
July 25.
yeah.
They want the plan certified by July 25?
Yeah.
This July?
Yeah.
No, 2025.
But certified by COA?
Or the
I have not seen the new bill as approved, but
Yeah.
yes, as the other one was the presented, yes.
They haven't came up with numbers though yet, have they?
No.
So what are they gonna do? Give you about 6 months to come up with
Yeah,
a plan that works?
Yeah, perfect time.
Yeah, all right, okay. No joke.
That's okay. Just put it in the hands of the municipalities.
Yeah, that's right. Just do it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out anyway, so.
Okay, if there's no further business, could we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, see you on the 15th.
Wow.
Wow.
18th,
Yeah.
15th.
15th.